Harald Greycloak, was a king of Norway who ruled for almost a decade. His brutal regime had created him a lot of enemies. He was the son of Eric Bloodaxe and Gunhild, the sister of King Harald Bluetooth, and grandson of Harald Fairhair, first king of Norway. Greycloak was born in 935. Very little is known about his early years. He was sent to England, where his father Eric was ruling as Viking viceroy for the Danelaw. This was the time in England, where Vikings settled and colonized over many generations, since the invasion of the Great Heathen Army. After Eric Bloodaxe was exiled from Norway, Haakon the Good became the king. He introduced Christianity into Norway, which made him enemies, as Norwegian people was still practicing the Norse paganism. By the time Greycloak came of age, he and his brother set sail to Norway, desperately trying to seize the throne. After death of his father, Harald Greycloak and his brothers waged war on King Haakon the Good, with the help of his uncle Harald Bluetooth of Denmark. Haakon had put a warning system to tell the approaching warships. He managed to fool Greycloak and his brothers into believing they were outnumbered. The Danes, when they came to the beach, they discovered that their ships had been pushed out to sea. Haakon gained the victory, and Greycloak's army was sorted by Haakon's army. The Battle of Fitjar in 961 marked the end of battle between the Greycloak and his brothers, with their uncle Haakon the Good for power over Norway. Eric Bloodaxe's sons landed on Hordaland unnoticed, and surprised the king Haakon at Fitjar. The battle was won by the army of Haakon, but the king was wounded in battle and died eventually. After Haakon's death, Greycloak and his brothers became kings of Norway, but they had succession issue. The third son of Eric Bloodaxe, Harald Greycloak, was the most powerful of the brothers. The succession was settled, and Harald ascended the Norwegian throne as Harald II of Norway. Their uncle King Harald Bluetooth of Denmark traveled to Norway, and declared Harald Greycloak to be his vassal king in Norway. Harald moved to strengthen his rule by killing the local rulers, and took power over the country including Halagarland. He also undertook a Viking expedition to Bjarmeland, and soon became less dependent on support from Harald Bluetooth. In the process of solidifying and strengthening his rule, he destructed many pagan temples and shrines throughout his kingdom. While attempting to Christianize his people, and trying to establish a more centralized power system and structure, he tried to wipe out all the local pagan religions. It is unknown how many temples and shrines he destroyed. In his quest to baptize his people resulted in huge loss of Norway's pre-Christian culture, religious and social heritage. It was during his reign as king that he gained nickname Greycloak, after an encounter with the crew of an Icelandic merchant ship. The merchant ship carried a large load of Varafeldir, a type of a faux fur made from sheep's wool. The Icelanders were having trouble selling their faux furs. Once the king asked them if they would make a present to him one of the furs, which happened to be grey. The sailors did not hesitate, and the king immediately used it as a cloak. This set an instant fashion trend, and Icelanders sold their entire load of furs to the king's men and the local people. Harald, ever after known as Harald Greycloak. In 970, Harald was lured into Denmark and murdered, in a conspiracy involving the Norwegian nobles and Sigurd Haakonsson, son of Haakon the Good. The surviving brothers of Harald Greycloak fled the country after his death. Harald Bluetooth won back power over Norway, and he supported Haakon Sigurdsson as his vassal king.